Hey everybody, welcome back to Beyond the Trailer Park. And we have a full house this evening, which is awesome. So, of course, always over in Pennsylvania, we are joined by the fabulous Beth. How the hell is it over there?
Howdy, hot as Hades. But it is summertime, so in 3 months I'll be bitching that it's cold as Hades.
Yeah. No, well, only when it freezes over.
Okay. Yeah, it's a little toasty, little humid, but
yeah.
At least I don't need my heater.
You haven't melted yet. This is
Well, that just means I don't have enough sugar in me.
That's true. And giggling from down in Savannah, we have the mouth of the South over there, Miss Ashley, with her. She's got the halo going on in the background.
That's right. I'm an angel this week.
Yeah. Yeah. Where's Bobby? Did he keel over from that yet?
Bobby who?
Yeah. Okay.
Hello, is this Bobby?
Hey, and I'd just like to point out one thing. I have made it 3 weeks in a row.
Yes.
Yes. Today you had like speed dinner, so that was pretty cool.
Oh my God, I ain't ever ate so fast in my life.
She had somebody visiting for her work that she had to go to dinner with, and she's like, I think this lady likes to go to bed real early, so I think I'll be okay.
and Beth, just for the record, it's hot as Hades in Pennsylvania. I'm in hell.
Yeah, I know. It's probably worse down. I remember when I lived in Kansas. I mean, or before I moved, my friend, it's 100 degrees, and I'm like, oh fuck, and I'm moving to that shit. It's like I was walking the streets when I was looking for a job because I don't drive, and it was like 110 out, and I'm like, oh.
Well,
yeah,
I remember just being in Savannah in fucking June, and I just about croaked. So yeah.
I can handle the heat. It's the humidity that's just horrid.
Well, and somebody I think who's got even worse humidity than that, Corinne's hanging out. I don't know. She said she didn't have much to say, but she's hanging out for anyway, so she's muted still. But hello from Florida. Yeah, she's like, oh, I'm muted? What?
Okay, I'm sorry. I unmuted myself.
There you go.
No, I'll say stuff if there's something of interest to say, but I don't. Ashley may have noticed, and then you guys have noticed that I normally keep my hair back, but the humidity has taken hold of my hair, and so I have to have a headband, and then I have like twist or not what are those bobby pins holding it down in the back, and
oh no,
yeah, it's just all humid. I saw my straightening iron the other day, and I said, yeah, that's.
Can I just point out how much she looks like Shelley Siegel?
She does.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that because I have such a crush on her. So it's kind of.
Well,
if you tell me that, I'll be looking in the mirror like, hey, how you doing?
That'll make things easier for later, man. You just like you're good to go. So we do have our guest of honor this evening, and just for him, I actually created a special entrance for him. So here we go.
Jesus Christ.
Welcome, Jason.
Oh man, I know I say this all the time, that is the worst thing that has ever happened to audio ever. It's the most. I mean, I don't like that band at all, but just no. I listened to it once when it first came out, and I was in the bathroom, and I had to take a cold shower after that. It was horrible. It was so creepy and.
It's an inside joke because everybody knows that Jay doesn't care for Disturbed very much.
I like Nickelback better than Disturbed. Like
Nickelback. Oh.
Yep.
Okay.
Damn, what did this?
I used to like you. Oh my
I'm not saying I like Nickelback. I'm just saying if I had.
No, but just the fact that those words came out of your mouth,
I'm not
you
alone.
know, I counted you among one of my friends.
There are many people that feel the same way I do. I'm just brave enough to talk about it.
I laugh because I was at a meetup in Toronto yesterday, and one of our friends that always comes, you probably like him, Jay, is a fellow, he legally changed his name to Peacefire when he was younger. Last name Magi, which he says that he kind of needs to change now because, you know, doesn't believe that shit anymore. But Peace is he's a musician as well, and somehow or other Disturbed came up, and he did I was like, oh, my friend Jay would love you.
Well, it's like
but you gotta hear this cover that Garfunkel song. Holy crap! It was amazing. My mom made me listen to it the other night. I wrote it down somewhere.
That's what I played.
It's so amazing.
That would be this.
Yeah, I can't think of her name.
I feel like he's that creepy uncle that's whispering into my ear, and like,
No,
like it feels weird and awkward, and I want to tell my mom and dad about it, but I'm afraid I'll get in trouble, so I just keep my mouth shut, you know.
Hi, Jay. Yeah, I'd like to spend the night with you, Jay. Buried all night long.
Wait, are you playing that song backwards? Because that's what I'm hearing right now.
well, anyway, welcome to the show.
Hey, by the way, it's very nice down here in Texas. I haven't left my house in a month, but it's very nice inside where the AC is. So I'm having a good time.
I can imagine, yes. Oh, shit. So many people might know that Jay started out doing a YouTube channel called Know the Truth, which isn't spelled that way, and we can talk about that later, because, as I said in the blurb for the show, my spell check hates you, Jay. And it's like, how to remember how to unspell the shit that you spelled wrong. It's like, but I know how to spell Konw now. So that's
well, people still, like, I haven't really checked my YouTube channel in a while, but we used to get comments all the time about people discrediting us because we didn't know how to spell that simple phrase. And then one of the scriptwriters, Jake Rofoot, he was trying to explain it to his to one of his buddies at work, and his buddy at work gave him shit for the misspelling of the name. And Jay's like, I can't change it. It's not my channel. Like, there's nothing I can do about it. And yeah.
Like, but you know, did they not understand that was like deliberate?
You know, I say this a lot, that a lot of people don't realize how deliberate what we do, you know, the things that we do are. Like with the channel or with the podcast, there is always a reason behind pretty much everything that gets put out there. And a lot of it goes beyond people. Because a lot of people, I think, are literalists. I'll take things as they are. And with a lot of what I do is a lot of subtext. And there's a lot of inside jokes. And there's no inside joke for the way I spelled that. I think it was just a quick thing. I made a stupid video, and I was like, I gotta come up with a name. And then I was talking to my buddy about it, and he's like, yeah, let's go ahead and do it. And then next thing you know, Konw the Trut with 4 exclamation points came up, and I was like, that's gonna be it. And that's probably why I have like it's very hard to find me, and I don't know why I do that. I should make it easier. Like, Nickelback's the best band in the world. I'd get a lot of clicks, but nothing.
Yeah.
Oh, I threw up a little in my mouth.
Jay, do you find with your title that you get a lot of well, as far as trolls go, that they're of a certain variety, and they're just ad homing, or are you getting a wide variety?
I get we get a wide variety, but the thing about it is, because there's a few people that are involved with the project, and you know, sometimes they're more involved than other times depending on life circumstances, but I think we all approach the name or the YouTube channel or the podcast, we approach it with a fuck it type of attitude, and so we don't take it as seriously as a lot of people think we do. And so whenever we do have a troll, it's like I don't think they realize they're trolling trolls. because
Yeah.
the trolls don't last long, because we end up like, there's been a few times where we kind of trolled people back, and then we become best friends because they're like, oh, you're one of us, you're cool, and then and then we do have a couple serious people sometimes. Sometimes they're atheists, sometimes they're Christian, and they try to get all serious, but they don't last long either, because at some point, like, people will argue with them, but then me or the other guys will just be like, we don't even care, like, this is so dumb, and then we log off, and we let whoever wants to hash it out. And it's not that we're trying to downplay their concerns. It's just that with that channel, because we're satire and we're trying to do it to make people laugh at our weirdness. There's nothing to debate. There's nothing to argue about. It's either you like it or you don't. And if you don't like it and you want to troll us, then fucking have fun.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I just realized that I screwed up and I'm broadcasting under the wrong show right now, but oh well.
What are you broadcasting under?
Atheists on Air.
Nice.
Well done.
Atheists on Air is coming out with the show.
I'll flip it to the right show. When we're
Hey, look, if anything, a whole bunch of people just rushed over to the show because they thought it was
right?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, it was live.
There is supposed to be a show coming out. I know, like a month ago, Steven and Rachel and Ryan Burkhart, they kind of did an episode, but I'm not sure what happened. But I know there's supposed to be a show. There is talks about trying to get it started again, but I really don't know.
I saw Professor Steven not that long ago.
Oh yeah, how's he doing?
Trying to get it together, but everybody's really kind of busy and on their own timetable, so it's just difficult to get it together. But that's the intent.
Yeah.
We had Professor Steven on a couple of months ago, and we were talking about it a bit then. But yeah, it's like one thing to do it and have the plan, and it's another thing altogether than to follow through when you need more than just yourself. So that's kind of understandable. But yeah. Sorry, Rachel. I'll fix it when we're done.
Well, I think a lot of people have to Go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm good.
I was going to say a lot of people have to realize too, and I think a lot of people do, is that especially during the summer, it's really hard doing a podcast when you have a life. It's like I have the luxury of a job where I work very short hours. I mean, part of it's because of my stroke and stuff, but did I blurb out again?
Yes,
a little bit, yeah.
My ISP's being weird, but yeah.
It's different. It's everybody's got their own availability, so.
Not only that, the thing I've noticed too, like when I did my videos, a lot of times for me it was very easy to just record myself, cut up the video, and post it. And it might take me a couple hours to do from start to finish. And the only help I'd get usually is script writing and stuff like that. But I don't think people realize how much harder it is to do a podcast. Like my podcast is more of like a quote-unquote live call-in show / audio drama. So there's a lot of there's a storyline going on behind the scenes, but I didn't realize how hard it was to do a podcast compared to what I used to do, because I have to add music, I have to create new music for each episode, I have to do the dialogue, I have to make everything sound like where it's supposed to be, and it's a nightmare. I mean, there's a lot of good people I work with that give me some pointers. I never thought I'd need pointers, not to sound narcissistic, but I'm good at what I do with audio, but I step into a whole new world. And even if you don't do that, though, if you do just a regular podcast, you still have to go through and make sure the audio is great, because people don't have anything to watch. They have to listen, and you have to make sure what they're listening to is great.
Yeah.
So it's hard.
I learned that just from doing bit segments for other shows, right? Or when I was recording for Atheist Apocalypse or whatnot. But just doing spots for this show, you go through and you're listening to yourself and you're like, God damn, I breathe a lot.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's like, and the funny part was the first few times I started to do it, I would start to actually hear my own accent, because all you weirdos keep telling me I have an accent. I don't know what the fuck.
It is about time you recognize that you have an accent.
Well, Yeah, speaking on that, I didn't like, again, going back to what I said before, when you're just an audio only format, you have to be more critical of your voice. I've noticed recently that, I mean, I didn't talk till I was 5, so this is why, but I slur a lot. And I realized there's a lot of words that I just can't say. And I'll have to sit there in the middle of the recording and I'll write everything down and go, that's a good word, I'm going to sound smart. And then I go to start talking and then I can't say this word. And I trip over my tongue and I have to sit back for a minute. I'm like, how now, brown cow, just to say this. And then sometimes I can't do that. And I have to actually I have to dumb it down for myself. And so.
Well, I give a lot of credit to people who edit, like those serious shows, because I just do a maybe 10-minute segment on my show that I pre-record and have to edit myself.
Yeah.
And all the inhales and the mouth noises, it's crazy. And people who edit, 2-hour shows, good gracious,
I've limited it to 30 minutes. No more than that. I cannot do that.
I don't blame you, bro.
Here that were like 7 or 8 minutes, and I was going, oh fuck, that's too much, man.
Yeah.
Well, it's like doing when I do my 15-minute segment, I put in 30 hours of editing time between adding pictures and fixing my horrid speech. It's like, I don't even have the voice for radio, and I definitely don't have a face for TV, but it's like, yeah.
Well, no, you're a pirate.
I prefer not to see two of everybody.
Well, I'm on like 2 other shows and I do no editing.
No, she doesn't.
Bobby and I had to talk about that the other week.
I did manage to run the show last night, and that was the first time.
You did a good job. I will have to.
Yes.
Thank you. But I can't imagine. I mean, I know that when we first started doing NRR, it started out as an hour, but oh my God, we would talk and actually do 10 hours of recording for an hour show.
Oh yeah.
Mhm.
And that's normal. Like if you look at any movie, a lot of times with podcasts or YouTube videos, I don't do this, but a lot of people, they'll record so much. That's why you have extras on DVDs, because they put out as much as they can, and then they just grab whatever they need.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So tell us, because some people might not actually know what Konw the Trut is, because that's where you kind of started from, and I will get to, you've expanded to other things, but we can talk about that too. But it's not your average channel, and that's what I always liked about it, because it's
yeah. Well, some people might know this, but it started off like maybe 2 or 3 years ago now. It started off as a way to deal with my anger and frustration towards just everything in general, especially religion. And while I understand the anger that people have, I just personally couldn't be angry anymore. And so the breaking point happened. I was watching this video where this woman was talking about Rockstar energy drinks and how they're from the devil. Yes. And so me and my friend Jeremy decided to get together and write a script about how it wasn't Rockstar, or it wasn't Monster that was bad. It was Rockstar energy drinks that were really the devil because of the pentagram. And so I did that, and then I just started making videos about, like, satirical videos, just kind of undermining some of the extremists that I would see in Christianity. And then it sort of, over the last couple of years, like, I took a break once, I'm kind of at another break with the channel again, but it sort of kind of morphed into Pastor J just became his own character. And now I'm not so much anti-religion. I mean, I still am in real life, but I don't want the show to be that. Because after a while, I just got to the point where I didn't know what to make fun of anymore, because I think I covered it all. And so, but that's what the videos are. They're basically just there to kind of be satirical. They're there to make you laugh. If you're pissed off at chemtrails, you can watch a video where I kind of make fun of chemtrails. But I approach it from as if I'm the pastor and I'm preaching about it, but I'm too stupid to understand what it really is, and so I completely go off topic. And so that's where the satire comes in. But a couple months ago, I was driving in my car and I was listening to the Atheist Experience, and I like that show, and I'm not going to like bash anybody on it. I'm not going to say, I mean, it's done a lot of good. I listen to it every episode, but I started to get really irritated because of how impersonal a few of the characters on that show could be, and I started to get annoyed about the technical issues they had every freaking episode, it seemed. And it's nobody's fault. I'm not blaming the show, but I thought, you know, in a way, if I think about what's going on, it's kind of a funny thing, right? These people that are trying to do their best to talk about atheism, and they have to deal with technology and how annoying technology could be. And so I thought, I'm going to actually turn my YouTube channel, I'm going to switch over to a podcast where I'm going to do like a live call-in show as Pastor Jay. And so I was thinking, like, I don't want it to just be like the Atheist Experience because they already have that covered, and I don't know if I could make it funny. And so I decided to make it sort of like an audio drama type thing, to where I'm doing a live call-in show with my co-host Baxter over in China Lake, California. We're based out of a trailer park, and we run our show from the trailer park. And
trailer parks.
yeah, and everyone knows that Pastor Jay's kind of an idiot, so of course I treat the show like, you know, Baxter and I are always fighting, but we love each other. And so I start, each episode I start talking about something that goes on in town, and for some reason the show kind of took on a life of its own, to where I have episodes where I'm talking to globs of cream corn and I murder them, and so I built up this storyline for the first season, and I just got done recording the last episode for the season, episode 9, where it builds up in this huge battle scene, and we're gonna be kicked out of the town. And so each season's gonna, I think the way I have it set up in my head is each season's gonna take place in a new area of the planet, and that's where we're gonna be. Like at one season we're gonna be traveling through time, one season we're gonna be traveling the country. I won't say what the next season's gonna be, but in between all of that, in between me talking about like what's going on around town, I'm also doing a live call-in show where I have anybody that wants to can call the voicemail line, which is something that exists. And you call the voicemail line. I think it's like 512-956-TRUT, and you can call in and leave a voice message for Pastor Jay. And what's great about it is people who know the character know to like be kind of a dick to me, and I edited it to make it sound like it's an actual live call-in show with all the technical issues, with me being kind of like a dick, which is a nod to the Atheist Experience. Because again, I don't mean to sound like they're a bad show. They're not at all. I just think it's great to be able to use that, and so that's kind of where I'm at now with the podcast. Like, it's an audio drama live call-in show.
Yeah. Well, and what I love about Pastor Jay is, like you said, he's kind of an idiot, but he thinks he's smart as hell, and I love. He's such an arrogant prick, but he's a total moron.
Well, the thing about the other thing about the podcast that I wanted to bring out in that character is I wanted to kind of show that not only is the character kind of stupid, he doesn't realize it, and he's a severe narcissist, and he has multiple personalities, and he sees the world completely different. Like, if you listen to the podcast and you start realizing, like, I'll give you an example. I have one scene. In real life, I have this dream, but I have one scene where I start talking about how I went to visit my parents and Bigfoot showed up, and they started attacking us. And at some point in the story, I ended up in a foxhole with an Asian guy, and we're shooting all the Bigfeet with guitars shaped, or sniper rifles in the shape of a guitar. And we get a squawk over the radio saying, "Don't kill the Bigfoot. It's not the Bigfoot. It's aliens with rape whistles." And I freak out. Well, the thing is as I start narrating these stories, I have all the music in the background. So I have the dark, creepypasta music, So there's a lot of that creepypasta, scary stories element. So it goes to show with Pastor Jay's character that none of this shit's real, but I think it is, or the character thinks it is. And so it just adds that element. So, yeah.
The corn glob was really fucking creepy.
Yeah. That corn glob idea actually came from my friend. I was up in Oklahoma visiting, and my friend James Templeton told me about a dream that he had, which, he was in a 7-Eleven, and all the shelves were lined up with cans of cream corn, and he gave me that idea, and I was like, can I please use that for the podcast? So he go
ahead. Yeah.
Oh no, so yeah, he allowed me to use it, and it went on the show, and it turned out to be really good and just as creepy and weird as I wanted it to be.
Well, I told you yesterday, or was that today? I forget now. Fuck. That it reminded me of Eraserhead.
Yeah, Eraserhead. Yep.
Yep.
And again, that's what and that's the other thing too is like even though there's a storyline, I kind of don't really care if it makes sense or not. I kind of don't care. Like I'll have a conversation or there'll be some part of the story that just doesn't make sense, but I kind of want that because I want the story part of the podcast to be just incomplete and weird, so it makes people feel funny, I guess, and I guess it worked. But on top of that, what's great is
Go ahead.
huh? Oh
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna say on top of that, what makes it great too is the phone calls that we get. You know, we get all sorts of people calling, and I get to play out. Sometimes, like, I don't know who these people are. Like, I don't recognize the voice, and then I'll find out later it was this person. But everyone seems to know how to do it. Like, they just call in, they'll start saying the most random shit. They'll talk about, you know, nice profile pic on Grindr, things like that, and I roll with it, and I think that's such a great thing to have with the podcast, to have the people that listen call in to interact with us, to just make it more of a user experience too, not just about me, you know.
No, absolutely, and you get some good calls too, so that's always. You're probably like, I don't even know what the hell I'm gonna have to work with.
Yeah.
There and find out what I have to work with. So.
But no one's disappointed me though. You know, that's what's great. Everyone's been perfect. So.
Excellent. But Beth, you were saying you just listened to episode 7 and you said that.
Yeah, well, I have to put a caveat because I don't want it to sound like a criticism. I have a very bland, for lack of a better word, sense of humor.
Right.
So, like, I'm the type of person you have to explain the joke to.
Right.
So, like, hearing you explain, like, you wanted to be bizarre, but you wanted to be funny bizarre. And I even said to Deb before the show, because I was listening to some of your podcasts, and I've listened to your videos, and I do like them because I love your creativity. And I think that's what's important for all podcasters, is that we all bring a different level of creativity and thought to what we produce. But I said to Deb, she goes, "Oh, you'll understand it when you listen to 7." I'm like, I don't get it.
No.
But and it's like, but hearing you explain it now, I'll have to go back and listen to it to see if I get it now. But and that's what I like about satire, and I fall into the Benny Hill style of funny.
Yeah, right.
I like that. I mean, my father was English, my mother was German, so the humor in our family was very dry, and I'm kind of a nerd, so I live in books and reading and all that other stuff, so I really just, some shit just don't get, but hearing you explain it kind of explains it even more, so when I listen to it again, and I do listen to the podcast over and over because I don't cognitively get it the first time around sometimes, but yeah.
And that's perfectly fine, because the thing is like when I switched to the podcast, I kind of did want to get away from the satire. I kind of did want it to be more of a story, because I've always wanted to do some type of story podcast. I just didn't know how to do it, and this was a good transition. But I guess another way to kind of help it make sense is like, I'm a big fan of David Lynch. And I'm a big fan of how he really never makes a lot of sense, but it's still, but what you watch and what you see, like, it's still really cool. And it's funny because Rachel's been watching Twin Peaks, and she's like, there's this one part that I don't get. I'm like, you're not supposed to get it. It's not supposed to make sense. I don't try to go too far in that direction to where it doesn't make sense at all. I still want it to make sense. But I guess another way, like when you listen to the podcast, just expect a lot of it to just be like whatever, because there is a lot of inside jokes. There's a lot of things that I see, that I observe, that I think, like for example, with the cream corn story, the corn glob, the Iwasaka character in that podcast who always tries to train me on things that I don't care about, that's actually a guy that I work with who runs the machines, and this guy at my work, he's always trying to train me on these machines when I'm trying to go home, and I don't care. And so I got so irritated by that I decided to make him a character, and now he's that character. And not a lot of people will understand that, but, you know, unless I'm like, oh, by the way. So, no, I completely understand. But
Well, that's like when I was writing for Atheist Apocalypse there, my Woo character, there was a guy that Beth and I ran into in what we call the Crazy Group. It's a Facebook group. And this guy is like, oh, water is God, and I'm
Oh yeah.
a
I still
hydro-
haven't written the post on that yet.
And so I incorporated that guy into my writing because I'm like, it's a Woo character. That's perfect. This guy thinks that water's God.
yeah.
And so I like incorporate. I actually even, because it was just a Facebook name, right? So I used his name and everything. I'm like, yeah. Because it was like a 3-part name. The first part was his name, and the second part was the planet that he believed he came from, because
Oh wow.
Mhm.
he also thought he was a lizard person. So.
Yeah.
See,
Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
and that's like the other thing too is like with a lot of what I write, like I'm a very and a lot of people could probably relate to this. I've always been a very artsy, fartsy, but kind of like muscle about it, like I've always been really artsy and very like I love looking at this image. I love listening to the sound, even if it doesn't make sense. I appreciate it. And I've kind of incorporated that into what I do. And also when I create anything, like it's great when people like it, but I'm always trying to impress myself and please myself. And what's great is like, the people that I work with together, when we collaborate, they get me and I get them, and it's great to be able to share that. But unfortunately, what happens, and I recognize this, I'm trying to fix it, is sometimes other people can get lost because they might not understand. Like with Beth, like it might be hard to get it, and so I'm always struggling with how artsy do I want to be with this project, and will people get it?
What I think too is that, and this is the mistake I made when I went in, and I'm going to date myself here, but I don't know if you guys are familiar with the Father Guido Sarducci character on Saturday Night Live.
I heard of it, but I'm not familiar.
Yeah, well, I'm a wee bit older than you guys, but he was actually a real Catholic priest. But he, if you know Saturday, this was during the Gilda Radner days, so this is how old it is. So I kind of went in with that preconceived notion, and with your work, you can't do that. And I think, like you said, you brought in a character that you actually have experience with. From your job. And I think that's important because, especially as atheists, people aren't aware of some of the things we face, and a lot of it's the same exact shit. We just might see it through a different lens, and these people don't get it, and that's what I think is important. I mean, explaining where you got that character from, I can relate to it. I used to work in a factory. I did for 10 years, and then I moved and came back and worked in a different factory doing machine work. And it's like I would have people teaching me how to do shit, and it's like I'm getting ready to walk out the fucking door.
Yeah.
And the other thing too is like I tend to, my natural humor is more dark humor. It's not satire.
Mm-hmm.
That's why for the YouTube channel I had a lot of guys work, or not a lot. I had Jeremy and Jay and Lucy and Ryan. Like a few people would work for me to kind of guide me through all that to make it more funny than I could make it. And where this podcast, I'm having a lot more fun than I ever have with anything except for my music, because I like that dark comedy. But my thing is like, and again, to give a shout out to those people I work with or collaborate with, they're like, I'm good at trying to make things funny that I see through my own eyes that not everyone else sees. And to me, that will be funny. Where they come in is they actually can be funny without having, they don't necessarily need those outside influences. They can be funny on their own, which is why I'm always like, come on, guys, make this funny. And so for me, like with this project, I've been a lot more to myself about it. Whereas like I'll write the script and then like I'll let those people I collaborate with work with me on that script to kind of make sure everything looks right and I didn't mess anything up. But yeah, that's something I need to make work for other people.
Well, I think it makes it more real too.
Yeah.
And that brings a reality to it that a lot of people miss. Like years ago when I first started working in the one factory, I had someone actually come up to and apologize to me 2 years after the fact about being gay. She goes, well, I've never worked with a gay person before. And I'm like, I'm no different than you, other than who I sleep with. And that's the type of reality, I think, or realism you bring to what you do. And just as, you know, Deb and I and Ashley try to bring a real, real life to what we do, and all the other various podcasts. So it kind of gives a different look into our world, so to speak, and it's really no different than anybody else's.
Well, that's another reason too. Like a lot of times with the co-hosts on the podcast, like the relationship between me and Baxter is a very dynamic one. We love each other and we hate each other and we mess with each other, and sometimes it will slip that Baxter and I are lovers, right? And I don't want to give too much away on the show, but if you really pay attention to Baxter and me or my character, it's not as simple as it seems in regards to Baxter like being his own person. And so and there's like hints on each show as to like who really Baxter is, but there's a lot of talk. I mean, there's sometimes things will be said because like there was one episode where I was talking about Baxter and I were watching this person digging a grave from our window, and Baxter cuts in that him and I were fucking, and like I'm a straight male, but I'm not afraid to kind of tap into that because I'm not scared of talking about those things. I'm not scared of like I don't have to, and it's kind of like a nod. I try to give nods to people, and it's just my way of saying, hey guys, it's cool, everybody's okay, like whatever people want to be, and so yeah.
Well, now you're talking about your music there too. That's the other thing that you do, which I have to say I think you do really well.
Thank you.
So you've been doing that longer than any of your podcasty stuff, though, right?
Oh yeah, I've been writing music for about 10 years now. I think I've been playing the guitar since like I think 2001. One of my buddies' brothers asked me if I wanted to learn how to play the guitar, and he showed me some notes, and I got really into the guitar for a while. I wanted to be in a band. I was in a few bands out in California, and then one day at work, somebody told me somebody gave me a pirated software, some digital audio workstation, and I started kind of writing some music, and then I decided I wrote an album. I don't have that album anymore, but I wrote one, and I thought, man, this is really cool. And so through a bunch of series of events, I decided to attend Berklee College, Berklee College of Music, and I did my audio production and technology. I had my little degrees in the background. I also did a songwriting course and a microphone course. All these stupid things that we think are stupid but help. But I did all that because I wanted to make my music better, and once I graduated and once I did all that stuff, I started writing my own music and composing, like making piano composition albums, and my music is a lot darker than the rest of the stuff I do because for some reason my music, it's a completely different atmosphere. I get into a different place with that, and so I have 7 albums on a website called aloststateofmind.com, A Lost State of Mind, all one word. And then
in the show description.
Yeah, it's in the show. Yeah, and some of the albums I sing. I'm not the best singer, but I do it anyway. And I also have some albums that are instrumental because sometimes I just don't feel like talking. I have this one album called Portsmouth that I wrote in a really weird time in my life, and it was all instrumental. And the titles of the songs were like an essay. Instead of making it, because I wanted people to understand what I was trying to portray with with each song, with the title, and so. But that's I'm kind of like honest. I'm at a stalemate with one of my albums right now, which is why I've been focusing more on podcasting. I figured I'd give music a break, but yeah, I do that too, and yeah.
Well, and what I love too is you are very generous with your music, so people will hear your music pop up all over the place in podcast land because you are, and I love this because to you it's a win-win. It's you get some exposure and you get to help out, other creators with their projects and give them some music. So
yeah, it's like it's half selfish and it's half wanting to help other people out, because I understand how the podcast world works, and it's hard. It's hard to it's one thing to put a podcast together, but now you have to find the music, and I figured. I think my music's cool. Of course, I wouldn't be posting it if I didn't. But I always think if people like it and they want to use it, then awesome. And if it gives me credit and recognition for if people can come to see my music based on that, that helps me out too. And so it's kind of a win-win. And plus, like one of my podcasts that I like, not my podcast, but a podcast that I like, is called You Are Here, and Brian, who runs that podcast, uses some of my music, and it fits really well with his podcast, so it makes me happy. Yeah.
Excellent. Well, yeah, we're probably gonna borrow some of that for.
Yeah, that's fine. Yeah.
Because it irks me to know, and of course because you write your own music, but the way YouTube become with the whole copyright shit, like. I've used websites in the past that have royalty-free music, right?
Yeah. Yep.
And our end piece that we do with Dave Foda, I was trying to even remember where I got the piece, because I thought for sure I got it from one of those royalty-free sites, but some asshole put a claim on one of our videos for that piece of. It's a classical piece, right?
Yeah.
It's. I want to say it's Tchaikovsky, and I'm like, really? Come on, we don't even monetize anything on there, like.
Well, YouTube has been kind of like I put out a video a couple months ago and I got hit for a copyright claim. And the way YouTube does it now is they don't say you have to take your video down. They just say you can't monetize this video, but you're okay to keep it up there, which is cool because you don't have to waste all this time on a video and then have to re-edit it. But they said that the copyright claim, they gave me the timestamp for the video. When I went to that timestamp, with my videos, I would sometimes put like another YouTube video in there of like people acting crazy, and there was no music at all. It was just, I think it was like somebody acting crazy, and I was like, how the fuck are you gonna monetize this for that section of my song or of my video? And there's no music at all. Like, what are you trying to? What's the copyright? And then it lists the song, and I'm like, I've never even heard of that song before.
Hey, you should monitor the speeches of the RNC.
They what now?
They should have YouTube should have been the monitor of the speeches for the RNC.
Oh.
Just saying.
Oh, awesome.
I've seen so many Melania Trump memes lately. It's pretty. That thread that got started in the NRR room was the best, though, I thought. Everybody knows Ashley always says, "Hey, y'all." Well, who started that? Was that Ari?
Yes.
Like, hey, y'all, Melania Trump.
I had this like weird moment of pride because I doubt that I'm the original, I'm the original or the person that originated this, but I saw the memes, and again, I don't like to really, not anymore at least, I don't like to really put my opinions out on Facebook and stuff like that, but I figured like, I was trying to think of something clever to say about the whole Trump thing, and I made some kind of comment of like, how do we know that Michelle Obama didn't go into the future, and still Melania's trying. And next thing you know, like that night, I get a call saying, or not a call, I get a message saying that Jimmy Fallon used that on the show. And again, he didn't take it from me. I'm not claiming that, and I'm also not saying I'm the first person to come up with that. But as far as I know, I came up with that. And so I made pretend in my head that somehow Jimmy Fallon ran across that tweet and then used it. And then I've been seeing it everywhere. Again, I don't think I'm the originator, but I'm going to pretend that Jimmy Fallon stole a joke from me. And I'm okay with that.
At the very least.
I'd be proud for Jimmy Fallon to steal a joke from me.
Yeah.
But at the very least, it proves that your sense of humor is on par with somebody
right.
own fucking like Hollywood show, right?
Right. Yeah. I mean, yeah. Again, I don't think that I originated. They probably came up with that on their own end too, and that's. But yeah, you're right. It's still cool to know, like, hey, I said this, and then somebody else said the same thing. It was cool. I relished it. Rachel made fun of me, but I relished in it.
I have to say this because I've been like listening to you all night long. And I know that sounded like really bad. But I've been listening to you and, listening to you talk about your show and just people in general. And I have to say, you're a very genuine person.
Oh, thank you. Appreciate it.
I mean, I'm sitting here and I'm like, he somehow gives backhanded compliments, but it's so genuine when he does it.
Oh, yeah. Well, I always go by the motto of, it takes a village. And I know that's used for other things, but I feel like in this world that we live in today, like, especially podcasting or whatever, you can't do things by yourself. And I feel like I'd feel like shit if I didn't give the credit where the credit was due,
right?
Because that's just not something that I would like to do, because I wouldn't feel right saying I came up with that, and I forget sometimes. But as much as I can, I want to say all these people do it too, because that feels good, and
No,
yeah, I appreciate hearing that. That's good.
Well, you've kind of. I mean, I've had an issue with humanity here lately, and but I mean, just with everything that's been going on with Bobby, and then with everything that's going on with the Bannisters, and then I hear people like you, and I'm like, you know what? People are starting to return or help me restore my faith, for lack of better words. And
man. Well, that feels good. I appreciate hearing that. I don't mean it.
Well, I mean, Deborah and Beth know what I've been struggling with.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and it's funny because Beth will message me. I mean, not Beth, but Deborah will message me, and she'll go, "See, there are good people out there."
Oh yeah. Unfortunately, we've been exposed to, like, and I'm not going to blame technology, but we're exposed to a world where everyone has a say on Facebook or Twitter or whatever medium you choose to think of, and unfortunately people can come across in the snarkiest of ways, and I don't think people mean to do that. I think it's just it's the medium that people use. Like a lot, like when Rachel and I first started messaging each other a lot, every message ended with an LOL or a smiley face.
Right.
And as stupid as that sounds, it was always that I'm going to add this here so the conversation seems happy. And I feel like, not to blame anybody, but I feel like people just forget to do that. And so a lot of times with opinions being shared on Facebook, everyone takes the stand, and sometimes it seems like everyone views the world in a black and white, divide kind of thing, and it sucks. And it's not until you...
You stole it. I'm not going to say that you stole it from me, because I never verbally put it out there, but that's what I started doing, is putting smiley faces or LOL behind stuff, so that way, people could read my message in a happy sense, instead of, instead of taking their own idea and putting their own tone on it.
I get when I'm arguing with theists, right? And because when I'm talking to...
That's not a good excuse. That's not a good excuse. We know how you are with believers.
Especially Islamic ones.
But they'll get this idea that I'm angry because I won't give any quarter on their stupid argument, right? I will not let them get away with, a less than viable argument. And let's be honest, none of them have a viable argument, but I won't let that slide. And then they'll turn around and be like, "Oh, you should be happy, and that's my religion will make you happy and peaceful." I'm like, I am happy and peaceful, bitch. Like,
see?
Yeah. Well, I think a lot too.
Because LOL after that.
Yeah. But the smiley face.
Yeah. I get that a lot, doing a lot of writing because of my blog, and it's like, I think it's the medium that we use to communicate. It's like, when I first moved back to PA, I lived with a friend of mine, and he and his boyfriend at the time were on again, off again, and they were constantly fighting.
Yeah. Instead
of talking face to face about whatever the issue may be, they were fucking texting across the room.
Oh my God, me and Bobby do that.
Well, that actually can sometimes help, because I know yesterday it was my fault, but I kind of got irritated by the heat, and Rachel decided to go to a separate part of the house, and I realized, like, oh shit, I'm an idiot. I shouldn't have done that. So instead of like trying to go, hey, I'm sorry, I was like, I'm gonna just message her. And I messaged her, and she came out, and we were good, you know. And so sometimes it does work the other way.
It's like, I can see that, but I'm talking. They literally had their arguments in the same room, usually sitting next to each other.
But then again, if they're typing,
but they never
screaming.
But then I would find out later that evening that what X said to Y was not what he meant, but because it was in written form.
Right.
There was no interaction. There was no. I mean, my voice is monotone as it is, so it's like you can't pick up my inflection in my words.
Yeah.
Unless, like you said, you use the LOL, smiley face, or snark, or whatever. And it's like, I find that with a lot of people, they never know which way to take me if I'm being dead serious when I'm writing.
Yeah.
And it's funny because it's like, no, if I was dead serious, you'd know, because I'd probably be dropping the F-bomb.
Yeah.
Because when I get passionate or heated, it just flies out, even when I write. I mean, you can tell, like, I just finished a post on Black Sabbath, and I'm like, oh dear, I have a lot of F-bombs here, so I had to go and clean it up. But it's still, I mean, you can still tell that, you know, I thought this stuff is shit, and I let that come through. But in some other posts, I mean, I just write whatever, and don't even...
And that's another I guess you can call it an issue, but that's another thing that I've noticed. Even today, I'm in an audio drama group, and I asked a question about microphones, about like techniques and stuff, and somebody came back and responded, and like I had to keep myself in check because their comment seems snarky, and by the end of it, I realized, okay, it's not a big deal, and I think that's another problem that we have. I think in this day and age. In some areas, we're so used to the snarkiness from other people that I feel like sometimes if we go into a debate or if we ask a question, it's like we almost expect somebody to be a dick, and so we're already ready to go. Yes. We're already ready to fight, and so that's where. And again, I'm not blaming technology. I just think people have just gotten used to it. And when you meet that person, when you talk to that person, like I have a friend that I'll message them, and they seem like kind of off, you know, like they're being distant or whatever, and then when I Skype them, I'm like, hey, what's up? And they're totally cool, and I realize, oh, that's my issue. It's not them, it's me reading that wrong, and I shouldn't, you know. Yeah.
I got that just in person in real life. It was a local friend of mine, and I was at a store, and I was waiting to cash out, and my friend came in the door, and I did the hey. And now he had aviator sunglasses on, so I couldn't tell, but he stopped in the door, muttered no to himself, turned around, and left. And he's got mobility issues, so he has a scooter. So by the time I got out, he was on the other side of the fucking parking lot. I'm like, what the fuck just happened? And it turns out he just didn't see me because I took him to our brunch yesterday, and he just didn't see me. But because he had the sunglasses on, I couldn't tell. So I'm standing there going, because it looked like he looked right at me when I was like, hello, and then he just turned around and walked right back, and I was like, do I smell from 10 feet away? Like,
well, this is kind of like over the last year, I think I've changed a lot. Like I'm not as aggressive. Like I started to take on this. I started to think of people differently. Like, you know, the same way that we don't look at a girl wearing a short skirt and think that she deserves to be raped, right? Like that's not. She doesn't deserve that. People shouldn't rape her, right? Horrible analogy, by the way. I know this, but in the same type of fashion, like. I don't actually just forget that analogy because that sounds stupid now that I think of it. But I tend to not hold people up to the standards that I want them to be. Like, for example, if I have somebody working with me on a project, I always tell them, like, look, I'm going to have this project done by Friday. If you want to help, great. Even if you tell me you help, I know how life is and I know life changes. So I don't expect you to be a certain way. And so, if you know, I've got to the point now where like nobody has to change for me. I guess maybe that's where that analogy comes back in. Nobody has to cater to me. Nobody has to change to make me, act a certain way. And I've kind of taken the position of I'm just going to be me and not expect anything from anybody. And I don't mean that negatively. I can't speak. I don't mean that in a bad way. I just mean that it's a lot easier for me to interact with the world because the less I hold people to certain standards, the less they're going to let me down, and that can just be cool.
And I used to train kind of something like that when I used to train in the call center. I used to hold a class on dealing with...
like that, by the way.
What's that?
I said she still trains like that, by the way.
But I used to do a class on dealing with difficult calls or escalated calls or whatnot. And one of the things I used to tell my students was, if you get somebody on the phone who's a real asshole to you, don't just be like, well, that person's obviously a dick. It's, you don't know, like, maybe they lost their job that day.
Yeah, right.
They lost their significant other, broke up with them, maybe somebody just died, or maybe they had to put their dog down last night. Like, you just don't know why somebody is being goofy with you. So just to assume that person's just an asshole isn't right. So and the other thing I would always say is, if they're being such a dick right now, think about what must have happened to cause them to be like that. So
right.
Using ways to sort of find empathy with people. And I think, we sort of sometimes lose sight of that empathy idea, because it's especially when it's in black and white text in front of you and you don't have the body language or whatnot to go with it. It's so easy just to kind of go, well, that person's a dickwad, or, and I do try to sort of figure out where somebody's coming from, and I try to not, like, you guys all know I have total potty mouth, and I will say whatever the fuck I want to whoever. And when I'm debating, I shy away from venues where there's a shit ton of rules where, don't say this or that, because I hate that. But I'm finding that when I am in a venue where I don't have those restrictions, where I can go and say, look, you're just an asshat, like, what the fuck is wrong with you? I don't do that, because I'm spending the time to figure out what kind of dynamic is this, what is their sort of, what kind of person is this, and I tailor my reaction to that, and I find that's far more effective than just, because in the same groups there'll be theists and atheists, and as soon as somebody says something they don't like, they're like, oh, you're fucking asshole, you're fucking idiot,
you're banned for the next 3 days.
Well, and that's the other thing too, is it's again, we see the world through our own eyes, and while we can understand people when they allow us to get close to them and we can interact with them, I feel like it's very hard to make an assessment of anybody if you don't know them that well. And so somebody might be a believer in God, and they might have their reasons, or somebody might have something to where they were born with, maybe their brain works differently than yours, and you can't. It's a very touchy subject, but when it comes to that, with the brain and how we all view the world, it's hard to really, again, it's hard to view people as a black and white type of thing, like. What is an asshole? What is a bad person? What is this? So it's you kind of, for me, I've had to kind of step back and realize that this person may be an asshole to me at the time, but I'm making that statement based off of how I view the world and how I would deal with things. Now, there are some things that are black and white, like you don't touch kids and you don't kill animals, sure. Like you don't kill a puppy. Like, yeah, there are some things that, like, hey, society, no way, that's not good. But there are other things, like if somebody calls you an asshole because you're an atheist or whatever it is, it's there's a lot of thinking that you have to do.
It was
called an asshole daily, because I went from being, low man on the totem pole to boss lady, and so I get called a bitch every single day. But just like we are talking about, I run into those type of situations at work. I get people who lash out at me, and normally I can take that. I'm like, okay, I don't know, especially if they don't normally do that.
Yeah.
Okay? They'll lash out, and if they don't normally do that, then I'm like, okay, you're apparently having a really, really bad day.
Yeah.
So let's just get back to work and we can talk about this later. But there's been, how do you deal with, like, for instance, there's been times here lately where people are just lashing out at me and I just want to, I'm ready. And in some degrees I lash back. It's like when somebody questions me about how I did my job a certain way, and I'm like, oh, yeah, well, if you want to do it, then, or if you can do it any better, then you come in here and you sit down and you do it. Or come watch me for a day and let you see what I go through on a daily basis. And I don't want to do that. I don't want to be that type of person.
But there comes a point, I think, especially when you're in a position of authority, where it actually can be appropriate to put your foot down in that manner. Because when you're the person in authority, the other people are going to, it's like your parent, Ashley. Come on, how often do your kids push you? How often do your kids push you to see what they can get away with? It's the same shit when you're the boss, right? People will push and push to see, where's the boundary? Can I move the boundary? Can I expand the boundary?
Right.
What can I get away with? So I don't think there's anything wrong with pushing back when you're basically saying, boundaries here, and your toes just went over. Now I'm going to step on your toes until you get back across the line.
Right, and that's generally what I do. And then after I do it, I'm like, oh my God, I don't do it in front of them, but I'll like turn around and be like, oh my God, what if that person's having a bad day? And 9 times out of 10, they'll come back and apologize to me.
Yes.
And then they'll explain to me why they lashed out, and I'm like, I accept your apology. Please don't let it happen again. And then they leave, and I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe I did that.
Yeah.
But that's good though, because you're saying, I'm empathetic, but there is a line you don't cross, and when they cross the line, you let them know, and they are, as you say, they're recognizing, oh shit, I crossed the line. Even if XYZ's going on today, that's not appropriate for me to do. I better go and apologize, right? So that makes sense.
I have this weird thing where if let's say I come into work and something happened that normally would have frustrated me, if somebody else comes up to me first and starts complaining about that, I don't know what it is, but it's like, now that they're angry about that thing that I would have been angry about, I can't get angry about it anymore because now it's on them. And so I usually just don't care anymore, because now that they're angry, I'm like, oh, cool, I'm going to keep working. But I also have this thing too, like in a work situation. I know the scenarios aren't the same, but like there's this one guy that I don't work with him, but we kind of work alongside each other, and he does his own thing, I do my thing. And he sometimes has to deal with a lot of bullshit on the floor. I work in an optical lab where we make lenses, and I maintain the machines, and he maintains other machines. And he'll come up to me a lot of times, and he'll complain about people like not doing their jobs right and making the machines like he'll mess them up, or they'll mess them up. And the thing about it is, like, I've gained a lot of I guess I gained a certain status at work where people enjoy when I'm around, because I'm not a dick to them, whereas they hate him because he's always yelling at them and throwing things. And so they come up to me and they talk to me about things more, and I get a lot of inside scoop on what's going on at work because I'm not a dick. And I think because of my brain, I know that being nicer gets more people to kind of be on your side. And because I see how they interact with them, or I see how they interact with him, I think in my head, like, I don't want to be him. So it makes it easier for me not to be pissed. Even if I want to be mad at somebody, I just keep it inside and I let it go.
Well, it was a real awakening for me when I realized that the more leeway I had in a discussion group to say whatever the fuck I wanted, the more likely I was to restrain what I said. Because, you know, I recognize that if I tailor my response to the person that I'm discussing with, it tends to go a lot further. And especially with some theists, like the minute there are a lot of theists out there, the minute you swear, like even like on text, they're just like, oh, you're evil, and they leave. And it's like, oh, come on, it's just a fucking word. But they're so sensitized to that as being, you know, part of the evil non-believer that they run away. And so I find that if I'm strategic with that, it can have more of an effect. Was that, Beth?
Well, I think a lot too, and you and I talk about this a lot in our discussion groups or on the side, is that in the discussions groups we have to separate the ideology from the person.
Mm-hmm.
So while I might violently attack an ideology, that does not mean I'm going to attack a person.
Yeah.
I mean, and you and I joke. I mean, we know that we've won a discussion when the line comes out sort of like, well, you don't have discernment to understand the scriptures.
Yeah.
I hate that.
Or I mean, it's like, dude, excuse me, but this is what I went to college for. I was a believer for 28 years. I went to school so I could preach this garbage. Yeah, I think I know what the fucking scripture says. Oh, and by the way, I do read Hebrew and I do read Greek, not very well anymore, but it's like, it kills me because you know you've won when you hit that point. It's like,
yeah.
And my favorite retort is, well, I thought your scripture was supposed to be so easy a 5-year-old could read it.
Well, yeah. This is why I always say at the end of my podcast, and I don't know if it's an original thing, so I don't remember where I got it from, or if I made it up. But the whole in a world of magic and make pretend anything is possible. Yes. Again, I'm not going to claim I made that up. I don't know, but it's a good quote, as irritating as it is to hear it every time. But that's how I view it. And whenever I hear somebody say something to the effect of, "Oh, well, you don't have God glasses on, therefore you can't read it," mm-hmm. I think, well, yeah, with magic and make pretend, you can make anything like work in your favor. Yeah. And like Beth said, like, why would you need to have those? Like, it's this idea of accepting something first and then understanding it. That's not how reality works, and it just seems silly. But speaking of that, were any of you Mormons by any chance?
No, but we had a Mormon on ex-Mormon last week.
Rachel and I just watched this documentary a couple hours ago about Warren Jeffs.
Oh,
holy shit!
FLDS.
Holy shit!
I know the one. What was it called? Starts with a P.
Yeah.
I have, yes, I've seen that, and the FLDS compounds and whatnot.
I heard of the name, but then we just put it on. Rachel and I put it on, and I was just like it wasn't. I mean, I've listened to Bryce Blake and Giggles podcast. I've listened to My Book of Mormon, and it's just funny. Like, you hear about how they're a cult, and usually, like, most people who don't know a lot about Mormonism, or at least the extremists, the FLDS or whatever, they think Scientology is crazy, cultish, but this branch of Mormonism is, I told Rachel, I was like, this guy, and also the new leader now, is almost like Jim Jones, except for there hasn't been a mass suicide. It is that creepy.
Yet.
It is creepy.
It really, really is. And, like, have you seen where they take the children in Hilldale and Colorado City? They'll take the children out of school and make them go work in the orchards and the fields, which is completely illegal.
Yeah.
And there's a guy who tracks the crazy shit that they do, and he'll go there from time to time, and he happened to drive by one of these orchards and saw all these children out there doing school hours, and he videoed, and you can see, like, he drives up, and they all look, and they're like, and they all, like, scurry off, like you've lifted up a log with a bunch of silverfish underneath. It's like,
there was one of the families who left the church, and they were able to, I think they were able to get their kids, and they were saying how the kids never left the room. They had to bring them food, and the parents had to bring the kids food because they were so, and they were saying it's not even brainwashing anymore. It's become a culture, and so.
Well, and the sad thing is that type of culture has infiltrated not just the Mormon Church, but Scientology has it to a degree. A lot of our extreme Christian groups, like Bernard up in Michigan, Wisconsin, I can't remember. His whole shtick is, isolation and that type of bullshit. Bill Gothard, who the Duggars follow with the Quiverful movement and the Patriarchal movement, they all do it. I mean, it's like you said, it's Jim Jones mentality. That's what makes it so scary.
There is one thing, like, not a lot scares me. Obviously, I don't believe in ghosts, so that concept doesn't scare me, although some of the movies are interesting. Monsters don't scare me. David Lynch movies might scare me. That new movie, Stranger Things, is kind of cool. But my point is, like, it takes a lot for me to be, like, completely freaked out. But the idea, like, if you watch the movie The Mist, it was that movie, like the adaptation of a Stephen King story. The part of that story where that woman basically turned the whole store into a mini cult, and the guy had a, well, I won't spoil it, but basically that was scary to me. The idea of that cult mentality of how people act when there's no law, and they have that. It doesn't even have to be a religion, but I'll use religion as an example because that's a real thing that happens. That whole thing, like, I will not walk through a FLDS neighborhood. I will not do it. I don't care if you tell me that they're all going to run inside their houses and hide. I will somehow get captured, and they will do bad things to me. That is the scariest thing in the world to me.
What's really funny is one of the authors I interviewed on another platform, in the last 5-6 years, I've kind of watched his for lack of a better word, progress. And the guy's really off the wall, and he's a con nutter, and he's really into the Illuminati bullshit and all this other.
Yeah.
I mean, reading his book and trying to prepare for this interview was a literal mind fuck, to put it lightly. And he finally, just after like 5 years of prepping, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with prepping in general, but when you take it to the extreme, he is now completely gone off the grid. But what's scary is I watched his follower count on Facebook increase. It went from 30 to 100 to where he's got well over 300 followers, and these people are so Mennonites. It's like, it's scary. And this guy, in my opinion, I mean, and this is armchair diagnoses here, but he's a paranoid schizophrenic. Yeah. And these people are following him willingly, and he throws in a bunch of religious bullshit. And, I mean, going so far back as that he ties this whole Illuminati and Nephilim bullshit into the Tower of Babel and Nimrod. He traces the history of it all the way back to, like, 2000 BC or whenever Nimrod was supposed to exist. And it's like, and these people are buying it. It's like, serious. It's like, to watch these people, and you see it in regular cults, non-religious cults. I mean, it happens. I mean, there's been stories of it happening within those that practice yoga, some of the more extreme forms of yoga. And it's like, you see it in Hinduism, you see it in Buddhism. I mean, it's this culture, and it's scary because it's like, how, I'll say ill, for lack of a better word, does one must be that you have to get your sense of self-worth from some jackass down the street?
Well, here's the thing about that. I've been an atheist. Okay, I'll talk about the Illuminati too. I've been an atheist for about. I've been an atheist for about 3 to maybe 4 years now. Before that, though, I was a fundamentalist for about 20 years, and I was a Catholic, a diehard Catholic for about 2, because I started dating a girl, and you want to say hi?
Hi.
Rachel says hi.
I don't have makeup on.
She doesn't have makeup on.
Hi, Rachel.
I will in a little bit. Bring the onions in here. I'll chop up the onions while I'm talking to them.
Seriously?
Yeah. I'm gonna chop up onions while she's cooking. So basically,
that would be a first for the show.
Yeah.
So I ended up I debated this girl and somehow I convinced myself that Catholicism was the right religion because the further back in time you go, the more all the other Christian religions go away. Of course, I didn't go before Catholicism, but anyway, with all that being said, I was a strict Republican. When Romney and Obama were running up against each other, I voted Romney over the abortion issue. That's the only thing I did it for because I was a Republican, pro-life. I listened to Michael Savage. He was my idol. And I was also big into conspiracy theories. That's where, like, I listened to Coast AM, and that's where a lot of my podcast, the live call-in radio show, comes from. Yep. So I got into almost every conspiracy theory. That's why, like, I can name off, well, not now anymore, but I used to be able to name off conspiracy theories left and right, and I believed all of them. And weirdly enough, I stopped believing in conspiracy theories before I even became an atheist. But the whole Illuminati, this is the thing about the Illuminati is basically, in a nutshell, it's this alleged organization that's controlling the world with a few members that have all the money. And they supposedly control everything.
This weekend, but I didn't know that was what that was called.
Yeah. Well,
yeah. New World Order is another word they'll use, and you'll hear the Rothschilds, you'll hear the papacy, Rome, England, and the United States are the triad of the New World Order, and it's.
The problem with a lot of these, with a lot of the conspiracy theory mindset is. No one's going to ever say that our government's perfect. There are obviously bad people in any sort of higher up echelon or whatever. There's going to be bad people, but to think that there's this organization that has the capability of controlling an entire world when this entire world is in complete chaos, it's kind of a far-fetched, in my opinion. So, I mean, and that's the thing. Another thing about conspiracy theories or theorists is. No one will ever say there has never been a conspiracy theory. There have been a lot of things. Like look at Nixon, look at the USS Maine. I think that turned out to be our fault, even though we denied it for a while. That's when that battleship blew up, and we started. What war was it? We started some war back in the day. But it's just now. Yeah, it's just nowadays we have this. People have this mindset that everyone is out to get. How much of the onion do you need cut up?
The whole thing.
Okay, just bring that in here. I'm gonna be cutting up an onion.
Finely diced minced.
Okay.
2 cloves.
Okay. So, but basically, that's been my. That's been my. How many garlic cloves do you need? 2.
I already cubed 4 breasts of chicken. Okay.
Okay.
I just want to know what in the hell is she cooking?
Oh, we've been on
this.
This.
Sounds good.
We've been actually eating it's not a diet, but it's called the paleo diet, where Rachel, being an evolution genius that she is, we started looking at it's called the paleo diet. It's basically we look at how we evolved and what we ate when we evolved. And if you look at the timeline of human beings since 2 million years ago till now, we've only been doing things like eating wheat for the last 10,000 years, and basically our bodies haven't really, and this is a nutshell version, but our bodies haven't evolved to be able to process a lot of different foods. Again, you look at something like wheat, that's an anti-nutrient. When you eat that, it takes nutrients and it basically absorbs what you already have in your body and you shut it out and you're not any healthier. So we've been following this paleo, which is we're basically eating what we were evolved to consume. And you'd think like, oh, it's this diet and blah, blah, blah. Holy shit, no, I'm eating the best food I've ever eaten. Or like fucking bacon-wrapped like salmon and things like that. But so that's what Rachel's making, some type of paleo chicken. So I'm cutting up an onion. So if you guys want, I'll be listening. Talk amongst yourselves. It won't take me long.
Now, if he starts crying, it's not because he's on the show. We promise.
Well, this is a good time because my niece Sam did a piece for us. It's about 4 minutes long, but there'll be a good time for me to put that on.
Cool.
And we can listen to that. And I know Beth had a couple of news pieces she wanted to discuss as well. And
perfect.
You can chime in on that stuff too. So
I'll have the mic muted, but if you have a question, I'm gonna be listening, so just let me know and I'll chime right back in. So enjoy the cooking show.
And if you guys want to mute for me, and I'm gonna put on Sam's piece, and anybody needs a potty break, you got about 4 minutes. And now it's time for How Many Licks with Samantha Mondegreen. Take it away, Sam.
So, I had a interesting encounter a couple weeks. Sorry for the lack of trans representation in the media, which unfortunately I can't do jack shit about. And I'm also sorry for the fact that we live in such a day and age where there is, while there is no step 1 to 10 for being for done your transition or have completed your transition, there is almost socially a step 1 to 10 to be the perfect woman. And it's unfortunate. And it needs to fucking stop. And I don't know what to do about it. Because when I don't accept the system myself, I get dead named the most. I get mispronounced the most. And I just put on a cute pair of jeans and a shirt because, fuck it, I'm feeling lazy and I don't want to wear a goddamn dress every day. So something's got to change. Something's got to get restructured there because people should just be allowed to be people, truly. I'm going to continue on this. Maybe not during this rant here, but there needs to be a new beauty standard that isn't a standard. I'm going to work on this. If y'all have any advice on that, you keep in touch as well, okay? I'm going to sign off for now. I love you all. And it looks like I get a slow cooker for my new apartment, so I'm pretty happy. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Okay, so apparently you guys couldn't hear some of that.
Nope.
Oh, lovely. Because I was...
We only heard like 30 seconds at the beginning, like maybe 20 seconds at the end, almost done. I'm going to cut 3 close. And basically, you want to play that again? Or
Yeah, I can do that. I can do that because what I was trying to do was mute like my own microphone, so I didn't fuck it up. But
yeah, it
hey,
sounded like I definitely want to hear what she has to say.
okay, well we'll do this again. Hang on. And now it's time for How Many Next with Samantha Mondegreen. Take it away, Sam.
So, I had a interesting encounter a couple weeks ago now. And at the time, I was a little bit upset about it, and I'm less upset now, and I'm more just sort of sad. So I kind of wanted to talk briefly about it. I don't go into too much detail. It's more the less that I want to pull out of this here. So I go to karaoke roughly about once or twice a week. Not because I have a super girly voice, but actually the opposite, because I have a voice. And I shouldn't be not allowed to sing just because I don't have a stereotypical woman's voice. And that's where this whole thing actually starts. So there was another group outside. Looks like they were neighbors to the establishment there, because there's a couple homes next door to the bar I go to. And one of them shouted out to me at one point when I was out at my car getting something. Just asking me, hey, because in this area of town, there are not a lot of people who've seen a trans woman, for example. So whether he was a little drunk and being a jerk, or whether he was legitimately serious, he asked me, if there was a dress-up party for his Halloween, or what was I doing there? Why was I dressed and acting the way I was there? And I did my best to politely explain that I was transgender, and that it was not a party, and this is how I live, and this is my life. And I kept getting a lot of really interesting questions from the woman beside him there, and that it almost made me feel bad for women in general, and I'll explain. She would ask me things like, where are your boobs? You're going to grow in bigger boobs. I would explain, by no means does breast size define a woman at all. In fact, between me and my girlfriend there, we've looked at mine recently. I am actually larger than some cis women, so but anyways, breast size by no means defines a woman any more than her voice does. And if a woman came up to them sounding like Edna from The Incredibles, going, hello darling, my name is Edna, nobody would judge her at all. That's just another type of woman's voice, and that's simply all I have. And so I tried to explain that for a bit, but it didn't seem like I was getting through, and it made me kind of frustrated at them at the time. But now I'm not. Now I'm not. Now I'm even further sort of reclusing into my hermity shell of not watching TV or the news or movies, because there's so little trans representation that's positive that in the end we are just a joke. Like in Ace Ventura movies, we are just a joke, and when somebody serious like myself is trying to explain it to them, there's such a separation from what they're used to in life that they can't even relate to it. That's why I end up being a joke there. And so I am truly sorry for two things. I'm sorry for the lack of trans representation in the media, which unfortunately I can't do jack shit about. And I'm also sorry for the fact that we live in such a day and age where there is no step 1 to 10 for being for done your transition or have completed your transition. There is almost socially a step 1 to 10 to be the perfect woman, and it's unfortunate, and it needs to fucking stop. And I don't know what to do about it, because when I don't accept the system myself, I get dead named the most. I get mispronounced the most. And I just put on a cute pair of jeans and a shirt, because fuck it, I'm feeling lazy and I don't want to wear a goddamn dress every day. So something's got to change. Something's got to get restructured there, because people should just be allowed to be people, truly. I'm going to continue on this. Maybe not during this rant here, but there needs to be a new beauty standard that isn't a standard. I'm going to work on this. If y'all have any advice on that, you keep in touch as well, okay? I'm going to sign off for now. I love you all. And it looks like I get a slow cooker for my new apartment, so I'm pretty happy. I'll talk to y'all later. Bye.
Okay, we got it that time. Yeah. Okay.
The joys of live radio.
I know. It's okay. But, yeah, so that was Sam's recent experience. She was, as she said, she was more upset about it at first, but kind of had a week to think about it.
Does she listen to Kelly's show, or
Yes.
she does? Okay, good.
I've hooked the two of them up, although
Nice.
Sam can be a little shy at times.
Yeah. And it's tough too because for me, a straight white male, it's tough. Like, there's only so much I can say besides I fully support you. I live in a world where everyone should just legally do what they want as long as nobody gets hurt, and everyone should be happy. And unfortunately, like what Sam said, we don't live in that world, and people still want to have their bigoted reactions towards people. And it's funny to me because usually, like, if I have a reaction to somebody, I know exactly why I have the reaction. So I feel like with a lot of times with bigotry, when you actually, I feel like if you sat down with some of these people and you ask them, why are you really angry, or why are you really being a dick, I feel like their answer might be, I have no idea. It's just it's not normal according to my worldview. So it's icky. So I don't like it.
Yeah,
it
comes down to the ick factor.
Yeah, and it's like I don't. Maybe I just don't get icked out by a lot of things. Maybe I just can understand people without actually being a certain way or whatever, and it's just hard for me to relate to somebody being bigoted. It's not to say I don't hate a lot of people. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there I don't like, but usually it's because of their personality and nothing to do with who they are. So yeah, that sucks.
I want to give a shout out to Janelle, who messaged me on Facebook. Well, actually, she had messaged me like months ago when I was on NRR talking about when I found out when Sam came out to me, and stupid Facebook put it in like the message request folder, and I only found it like a few days ago. But she's been awesome. She's a trans lady out of California. And she's been really cool, just saying, hey, I'm here, I've been at this for a while, and I'm happy to help in any way. So I thought that was really cool. And we started trading fingernail advice and stuff.
I hope a lot of listeners to the show, and I don't say this enough, but I hope a lot of listeners know that although with what I do with the channel and the podcast, I am 100% absolutely an ally to the LBQT, LBG. Fuck it, God, I'm an ally. All right, I'm getting tired. I'm hungry. Fuck you guys. No, but no, I am absolutely an ally. And while I might not touch on these subjects, it's not my strong point. I feel like there are a lot of people out there who are way better at me than forming the thoughts and educating people, and so I feel like I've taken that, I guess, role, if you will, of just trying to make people laugh. But so even though I don't talk about it all the time, I'm absolutely an ally. So I hope people understand that. And there are people in this world that, while they don't talk about it, they still are standing hand in hand with other people, because we're all the same. We're all human beings at the end of the day. So, yeah.
Well, what it comes down to, Jason, is that actions sometimes speak louder than words. I would much rather have someone walk beside me in strength and conviction than to have them up on a podium saying hollow words.
Right.
To me, having someone beside me is much more important. Yeah. I mean, my friend that I was speaking about, who after 2 years of working together apologized to me, is now one of my biggest allies.
Yeah.
She doesn't have to go out and spout it off from the mountaintop, but she dissipated a lot of the bullshit I dealt with at work. I'm very open out. I mean, I'm not going to announce, walk into a room and announce that I'm a lesbian, but I'm not going to deny it either if somebody asks me.
Right.
And a lot of people assume just by the way I look and how I dress or how I carry myself that I automatically am. Well, newsflash, I've been like this since I was like 5 years old. I haven't changed one bit. I was a hockey nut when I was 3. Just because I played ice hockey doesn't mean I'm gay. I
Right.
just happen to be. Just because I was, a jock in high school doesn't mean I'm gay. That
Yeah.
has nothing to do with it. And just, I'm the type that'll wear polka dots with stripes. I don't give a fuck. It's comfortable.
You should see
Whatever.
Rachel and I. We are the
I
poster
mean,
You're the poster child for what?
for the people of Walmart.com. I will go in there with, like, right now I'm wearing Rachel's Minecraft t-shirt. I'm wearing these pajama pants, and then I'll wear, like, Ohio State slippers, and I don't even know what the fuck that means. So, like, yeah. But
it's like, I mean, people are so quick to judge on outward appearances or how you carry yourself or how you talk.
yeah.
It's like, that doesn't make me. I mean, one of the things a couple of people have said to me in the past that have actually met me in person is like, oh, you're the same as you are online. It's like, well, what the fuck did you expect?
Yeah.
It's like, what you see is what you get. I'm gay online, I'm gay offline. End of story.
Mhm.
So yeah, for anybody that's in the LGBTQI community to have to go through the struggles that Sam or Callie, who I bring up quite a bit,
Yep.
have to go through, or anybody who in that community, when someone has to go through that, to me, it's just not because I am gay. It's just utter bullshit. Just because I'm human.
Yeah, and that's the other thing. I can never be dishonest and say that I know what people go through when it comes to that. I again, like I stated before, like, you guys know who I am, and I can never pretend that, I know what Kelly goes through. I know what you go through.
Right.
I know what Sam goes through. I can't say that. What I can do is, like I said before, let it be known that if anybody needs help, I'm going to do whatever I can to help.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah.
I don't think it's right for me to be able to speak for certain individuals, because, again, I don't know what it's like, and I admit that. I publicly admit that. But so I do the best that I can, and I try the best that I can to make people feel welcomed. And
I just said to her, I said, she's lucky I wasn't. Well, no, the other person is lucky I wasn't there.
yeah.
Fate, heaven help whoever says anything like that when I am around, is all I got. Because
and unfortunately, and I've talked to Callie about this before, and I've talked to you about this. Unfortunately, we live in a world where we can educate as much as we want, but for reasons that I don't understand, there is going to be a certain amount of people that will always be bigoted. That doesn't mean that we have to stop the fight. It just means that, unfortunately, no matter how much you feel like you've progressed, there's going to be certain people that will be, again, bigoted. But the good news is that now that the snowball is rolling downhill, hopefully we'll get to a point where, after a generation or two, and I hate that it's going to take that long, but hopefully we'll get to a point where those people with those opinions, those opinions will die with those people. Absolutely. And we can finally get to a point where we don't have to deal with this, and people can live their lives and do what they want.
You kind of touched on this a little bit in a roundabout way, but I did a talk a couple of months ago for Atheists of Facebook about conformity and tribalism, and I think that has a lot to do with these things.
Right.
Because it's so ingrained in us from our beginnings of civilization that if somebody's not like you, then they're probably a threat.
Yeah.
And I talk a little bit about where that comes from, because many generations ago, that was absolutely true. If you met a stranger, they might try and, mug you and steal your food, or, kill you and throw you in a ditch or whatever, because that's how things were. But we're so beyond that, and yet we still can't seem to shake this idea that if somebody isn't exactly like me, then they're somehow a threat. Even if we can't figure out what this threat might be, we just sort of react that way. And
I have an opinion, and even though I said I don't share opinions a lot, this isn't scientifically backed, but it's just an idea that I have, that I feel like a lot of the way that our, for lack of a better word, culture is here in America, at least, and it could be a worldwide thing. I feel like, yes, religion does do a lot of damage in a lot of aspects of life, but I feel like there's a lot of people who aren't religious that still act bigoted.
Yes.
And I feel like what it is, it's not necessarily that their religion is telling them to. I think religion in this country, at least, has become more of a culture than it has become an actual way of life. And it's become a culture in that somebody might say, yeah, I believe in God, whatever, but because of how they grew up or because of the society they're surrounded with, they still will harbor these I'm scared of this kind of tendencies, even if their God doesn't back up what they're saying. And that's what I'm saying. The more this movement grows, the more atheism becomes a thing. I feel like the more that way of thinking for a lot of these people, religious or not, it'll die out with those people and things will progress.
Well, a lot of it, you kind of hit the nail right on the head, especially with the younger generations and outgrowing it, is that, and I harp on this quite a bit, is that within the Dominionist movement, within the right wing specifically, although Democrats are just as guilty of it, Hillary Rodham Clinton is a prime example. She is part of the family. She is a Dominionist, although she doesn't seem to be as active as before or toned it down. But one of the philosophies in it, this was prevalent during World War II with both Stalin and Hitler. Give me a generation, I will change the world. And that's exactly what Hitler, exactly what Stalin did, and the Reich has adopted this philosophy, and it's very prevalent, especially in Texas. If you look at the 2012 Texas platform, they have written right in their platform, no teaching of critical thinking skills in schools. And this movement started.
And Moses wrote the Constitution.
Yeah. Well, this movement started in the 80s with the formation of the moral majority.
Yeah.
And this is actually what the Republicans primarily have instigated within their platforms. Literally dumbing down society, taking the critical thinking skills out, and whether you are a full-blown fundamentalist or just religious by proxy, you're going to adopt that cultural attitude.
Yeah.
I have friends who say, oh yeah, blah blah blah, I'm Christian. It's like, okay, why, they're just, but that's what they were taught. And that's the ideology, that's the culture that we were raised in.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always been a rebel, so it never really stuck with me, thank God. But, it's part, and what we're seeing now is the beginnings of that counter-movement, whether the secularism, where we're separating church and state, we're trying to bring back, critical thinking, and that's why I think, like, your podcast and your YouTube channel are important. That's why I think everybody's is. Whether you agree specifically with points being made, we all have points that are important,
right,
and that's what we have to take, and that's what we have to build on to eliminate this culture. I mean, I have yet in my 20-plus years of debating online seen a secular argument that works for being anti-LGBTQ. There is none. It comes down to the ick factor. Same thing with abortion. Yeah. There is no logical reason for being, other than saying, well, I don't believe in murder. Well, you cannot make a secular argument, in my opinion, not in support of abortion. It comes down to bodily autonomy if you follow the science. If you want to get into moral arguments, then you're getting into religion.
Yeah.
So it's just, and Deb and I talk about this a lot, is that being, whether you're pro or anti-abortion or pro or anti-gay or whatever, has nothing to do with being an atheist.
Right.
I mean, all atheism is lack or disbelief in God. How we can get it. I mean, ignoring the finer points of the argument.
Yeah.
But everything else is secondary.
Exactly.
But, and that's what people forget, and I think that's something both Dev and I strive for, is that, yes, I am an atheist. I'm an atheist who happens to hold this opinion, but my opinion does not support my atheism.
Right.
I don't believe in God. Plain and simple. That's it. That's all my atheism is. But as a human being, this is what I believe.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, Beth, you had some stuff you wanted to go over tonight too.
There's a couple news articles that caught my attention. For those of you that
Just mention quickly too. Ashley sends her regards, but she kind of started feeling oogie and had to beg off. So, yeah.
Well, it was good talking to her and Corinne tonight. That was awesome. So I'm glad they came on. It was good.
Corinne had to go to bed a little while ago, but she just kind of wanted to come on and say hi to Jay too. So.
Definitely.
But yeah, so I just wanted to get that in there before we dive into another topic because we still have a bit of time left.
Okay.
Yeah.
Go for it.
I'll keep it quick, and if we want to dive, we can dive. For those of you that are unaware, one of the founders of the Moral Majority, and that's why I mentioned it, was Tim LaHaye. He was very active with Jerry Falwell back in the 80s. He croaked today. Thank fucking God.
Wait. What's his name?
Tim LaHaye. He wrote the Left Behind series with Jerry Jenkins.
Yep.
I read all of those books.
Yes, you and me both, except and he also started the Institute for Creation Research, for those that don't know. But yeah, he had a stroke. He was 90. I have no love loss, and I will state it quite publicly. I am glad he is gone. One less to worry about.
It isn't real quick. I'm sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, Jay.
Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, isn't the Institute for Creation Research? I think Rachel and I have talked about this a lot. I think my parents had some of their stuff. They're the group that says that we'll accept any evidence, scientific evidence, as long as it doesn't go against the Bible. Isn't that the same group?
I think
they are.
Yeah, this is the. Yeah, there's two of them.
That's really what their motto is. Yeah.
There's Discovery. There's Discovery
Institute,
and then there's the Institute for Creation Research, which is Henry Morris's group. For those that don't know, he was popular in the 70s and 80s. I believe his son is now running the group. Now, the Discovery Institute is the one that's responsible for the Wedge document. Hopefully I have my things correct, but I'm doing this from memory. So, but yeah, he passed away today. He had a stroke. He was 90. So, one less. I mean, we still have to deal with the Institute for Creation Research, which I find totally oxymoronic because they don't do any research. None of them.
Yeah,
do.
Rachel.
Rachel probably deals with it.
Well, no, when she came up to visit, my parents, I don't know if they did it because she was coming up to visit and they know that she studied evolution, or studies it, but they left around the house a bunch of like creationist magazines. It was either the Discovery or the Discovery Institute or the Institute for Creation Research, but she brought one of those magazines home. She talked about an atheist on air once, and she went over that article, and she was reading me some of that. It was insanity, and I have a very basic understanding of evolution. And Rachel is why I've gone as far as I have. But some of the basic stuff that I know, it's just very easy to. It makes sense to me, right? And so even when I read these articles and she points stuff out to me, I'm just like, how? I don't understand. Again, going back to in the world of magic and make pretend, but I just don't understand how people can have this mindset of we'll accept evidence unless it goes against the Bible. Like, how attached are you to that book, man? I don't fucking get it.
I think they.
Well, it's just like with the Bill Nye and Ken Ham debate. I mean, basically, Bill Nye, if I remember correctly, I don't know if he asked it directly, but what evidence would you accept? And basically, Ham admitted nothing that goes against the Bible. That's the mentality they have.
I believe it was a question either from the moderator or a question from the audience that was posed to each of them. What evidence would it take for you to change your mind? And Bill Nye was like, you know, or what would it take to change your mind? And Bill Nye was like, evidence, man, bring me some good evidence. And Ken Ham was like, nothing. And everybody's like, oh yeah, you're smart, yeah. Speaking of
I mean, most people.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. That was. No, I was just going to say, a lot of people don't realize I used to be a big-time creationist, and it's like when I started learning more about evolution beyond, I mean, on my own, beyond what I did not understand in college. But, it was plain evidence.
I had this theory, I'm loosely using that term, but when I was religious, and I don't think I cared as much about creationism. I just didn't care at all. You know, but I did side more on the creation side. I just didn't know any arguments. But one of the things that made sense to me at the time, and again, this is okay. So this is one of the things about my podcast and the YouTube channel I like to do, is with that I allow my character of Pastor Jay to say whatever he wants, because I joked with Joey Lee Kirkman about this. I could debate him on anything and win, because I know how to bullshit, and I feel like if it makes sense to me, I can make it make sense. And one of the things that I used to believe, actually two things, and I'll stop. But one of the things was, how did we get all the water on the Earth? And I thought, oh, that's simple. A huge comet came by our planet, and since our crust was so thin, the gravity from the comet pulled the mountains up, and then the heat from the sun dropped all the water on the Earth. That's not true, but that's what I thought, right? That's where the flood came from and all this shit. Another thing I used to believe, and when I first started talking to Rachel, I thought, I don't know how she didn't bring up me right away over this, but I told her, and I was an atheist by this time, of course, but I was still kind of getting into evolution, and I asked her, I said, well, what if there was a situation where, like, what if there was a flood, and, you know, it makes sense that the kangaroos could have gone from, like, wherever the ark landed to Australia, because at the time, the continents were together. And she just kind of gave me this look, like she was just like, what? Didn't make sense in her head. And that's when she taught me about Pangea and millions of years ago. And I was like, oh, Jesus Christ. I'm like, you know, and but these things made sense to me, and I didn't need any validation. I thought, that makes sense, I accept it. And that's the thing, and I feel like a lot of people that accept creationism, for example, like, I accept evolution because I've studied it enough to understand it, to understand why it happens. I don't just go, I blindly believe it or whatever. And that's the thing about creationism. I blindly just said, that makes sense, that's true.
Yeah. Well, and it throws
and that's what it comes.
Go ahead.
Go ahead, Deb.
I was going to say, it throws people off with me, because I became an atheist at 17 years old, and it had absolutely nothing to do with science whatsoever. I am not a science person. I am a history nerd.
Yeah.
And that's where it came from for me. So I didn't, and I quit taking science after the one credit I had to get in high school. So I never studied evolution, like, ever. I never thought about it. I never cared about it. And so when theists are like, well, how do you explain where life came from? I'm like, well, there are good theories out there, but I really actually don't give a fuck.
And that's why it's funny. That's why I find that argument from theists to be kind of weird for me, because you know, I like with you, I like history more than I understand evolution or like evolution. Like, I appreciate it, but it's hard for me to wrap my head around it. It's hard for me to get into it. I'm more of an artsy guy, right? And the thing is like, I don't need evolution to be true or whatever for me to not be a believer in a God. And so whenever that question gets posed about evolution, I'm like, honestly, dude, I don't fucking care. Like, I can bring Rachel in and she can talk to you about it, but if you're going to use evolution or whatever as a way to convince me that there's God, that's not why I became an unbeliever, because I was reading Bart Ehrman books about the historicity of the Bible and how it just didn't make sense. And once the Bible went away, the foundation of religion went away, and I couldn't take the Bible seriously. I couldn't take a God seriously, and I just, you know, there's a lot more to it than that, but you get the point.
Exactly. Like, I can understand the very basics of evolution. Like, just so you know, like years ago when I first started debating people online, it's like a decade now already, God. But it was a a Yahoo group that was run by these like rabid fundies, and when I got in there and they started talking about intelligent design. And I didn't know anything because they're like, well, what do you think about evolution? I'm like, I don't fucking know. Like, it's a thing, I know, but I don't know. So they're like thinking, oh, we got a live one here. And they started throwing this intelligent design shit at me. And for like, maybe a half a day, it sounded like, maybe. But then I went and I was like, wait a minute here. And I went and I educated myself about what the fuck they were talking about, at least to my basic knowledge. And then I was able to come back and go, yeah, no. And it pissed them off because I said, if for some reason you could prove it was an intelligent designer, I'm going with aliens. And they're like,
well, I've heard this before, so I didn't come up with this on my own. But that also makes you wonder, like, all these people that are pushing intelligent design, is that what made them believe, or did they already believe and then accept intelligent design? Because if that convinced them to believe, I want to hear the argument that turned them into a believer. Because everything after that, it doesn't matter to me.
Like, I went and learned what is irreducible complexity, why is it stupid, and like when they throw out things like, well, bacterial flagellum, so I would go and read, well, no, if you take out this part and this part, it becomes an injector, there goes your irreducible complexity. Like, I can do that.
You know what, though?
I don't like doing it, but I can if I really have to.
But here's the thing, and thankfully I haven't really debated a theist in a very long time, but one of the questions I always try to ask, if I remember, is what is your incentive for pushing this? What is your incentive for believing? I have yet to hear a theist. I'd like to, if any theist is listening and wants to email me at konwthetrut@gmail.com, KONW.TRUT. That's a plug. No, I'm just kidding. No, but seriously, I'd love to hear from a theist if they believe in God just because. Because I have this feeling that most people believe because there is a fear of a worse place than where we're at now. I don't think anybody believes just because it feels like, because they want to believe. I think if you took hell out of the equation,
there'd be a lot of people going, nah.
Yeah. I'm sure there are some people out there that do believe. I haven't seen one yet. And I'd love to have a conversation with that person and go, okay, if you don't believe because you fear hell, if I took hell out of the equation, would you still believe? Oh, yeah, I'd still believe. Why? What is the goal? It's not heaven. They say that. It's because of heaven. Well, but there's also that hell aspect that you don't want to go. So you're picking one over the other. It's weird for me. Again, I'm not saying nobody believes that way, but I feel like more people fear a hell, and that's their incentive to believe. Yeah.
But I love seeing even in a online debate, you can almost see the dismay when they're like, what do you mean you don't care where life came from? I'm like, I really don't fucking care. Like, why do we... I can understand people who are really curious about science and how things work, and they are like that with everything. They want to know how everything... Yeah. That I can totally get. But this, like, well, we have to know where we came from so we know what our purpose is and to get meaning. And I'm like, no, you don't need that. You just...
my purpose is waking up, having good days, treating my girlfriend with respect, making music, making a podcast, interacting with my friends, making some money for my job, and then coming home and going back to sleep.
And maybe
I'm happy with that.
And maybe having your dog sit on your face once in a while.
Yes, maybe that. But that to me, that's, if you want to call that a purpose, that's fine. But yeah, I don't understand. I don't believe in destiny or purposes. Yeah, and I'm okay with that. I don't feel like there needs to be a purpose. I don't know. Beth is frozen.
No, she's good now. I can hear. But
can you hear me?
Yes. What was your other thing you wanted to do? Because we're pretty much at the end here.
I want to say something after. I want to comment on a comment, but go, Beth. You can go first.
Absolutely.
Well, as many of you know, I follow the cake debacles, the bakery cases, First Amendment stuff, and it came through the pipes today or yesterday that even though the Colorado Supreme Court has refused to hear this religious freedom challenge, Jack Phillips, who owns Masterpiece Cake Shop, who lost big time in Colorado, has filed a brief or whatever you have to do to the Supreme Court. So he is taking his baking a cake for gay couples to the Supreme Court. Whether they're going to hear it, probably not. I mean, he has no case. He never had a case to begin with. So we'll be hearing more about that. Yeah. They're also making a big stink about Baronel Stoltzman, who is a florist who refused as well. So they're still fighting, and this is all, if anybody follows me, this is all Alliance Defending Freedom, because they're his lawyer, and Baronel's as well. So. But that'll
be something to keep an eye on for sure then.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, Jay, what was that you wanted to mention?
I apologize if I get the name wrong, but one of the commenters, Roxada, they wrote, I don't want to assume it's a boy or girl, I'm sorry.
No, Nick was our guest a couple of weeks ago.
Okay, so Nick. Basically, he wrote that Satan is a more loving God. God makes you meet unreasonable standards. Satan will take you just as you are. And I want to add to that because I was on, I think, Celador Skeptics a while ago, and we talked about this whole concept, and it's funny to me because you never hear a lot of bad things about Satan. A lot of the ways Satan is described and a lot of the things that Satan does isn't really described in the Bible. And when you take the Bible, if you're a biblical literalist and you look at the Bible, it seems that God is the most human. He's the most angry, the most jealous, and whatever, and he kills a lot. And you don't hear a lot of bad things that Satan does. In fact, in the Garden of Eden, he told the truth. And that makes, and I used to always a lot of people play with this idea of, what if it was actually reversed? What if Satan was the God that we were supposed to worship, and we're being fooled into fearing? And that's how a lot of religionists run the same way God runs humans if God existed, of that fear-based thing. Like you fear your person to the point where you have the Stockholm syndrome. And I feel like a lot of religions have a Stockholm syndrome towards the Christian God, Christian religions. And so it's funny, and that's a huge point. Like. This idea that this Satan character that we know little about seems to be the bad guy. And I'm thinking, like, in what movie or comic book would that be a thing? Like, God would never be the good guy in a comic book. Satan would be the good guy. Satan might have had it right all along. He gets kicked out of heaven. Well, maybe he had it right because God was not really pleasant. So that's a good comment.
Yeah. And I've listened to Christians, and they go on and on about how Satan's so terrible and evil, and he wants to send everyone to hell, and blah.
He has nothing to do with that. Satan is in hell, and God's going to be the one. But see, that's the thing is God puts it on us. Like it's our responsibility, and that's
and like Nick said in the chat, like Satan only killed 10 people in the whole Bible, and those people that he killed was because God told him to.
Or at least they made a bet and God allowed it. Yeah.
Yeah, God, like that was God's thing. Like Satan wasn't like, fuck, I really want to kill some of your stupid humans.
And the thing is you can't. Okay, and here's the weird thing about it, right? You can't blame the believers almost. It's almost like you can't blame believers. I mean, as an atheist, you can because we don't think there's a God, so you can blame them. But if God existed, right, if there was a God, it's hard to blame the believers of that God if that God is saying, if you don't do this, you're going to burn for in eternity, right? Yes. So it's kind of like if God existed and Christians worship that God, and they were bigoted because of that. It's almost like God's putting a gun to those Christians' heads and saying, if you don't do this, you're burning forever. So it's kind of like this weird thing, where meanwhile Satan's in the back, and he's just like, look, man, I'm in hell too, guys. I'm sorry you had to go through this.
Yeah.
Shit shouldn't have gone down this way. And so that's why whenever I hear the Satan argument, I'm like, I'm okay with, if you think I'm possessed by the devil, I'm perfectly fine with that, because I'm a good human. I treat people with respect. I'm not an asshole. I don't care what people do. So apparently Satan possessing me has actually made me a better person. If all of that existed, by the way. I'm not saying it is. It does.
Oh, I know, it's ridiculous when they're, oh, you're being duped and blah blah blah. I'm like, well, where's the evidence that Satan lies? Because no one ever told the truth. Yeah. And because they give those titles like the Great Deceiver, I'm like, where? I haven't seen.
The only way they'd be right in that is by saying Satan's the Great Deceiver. Because God is honest with everything, like God doesn't lie about killing millions of people and the flood, But even then, that doesn't make it so. Yeah, it's a scare tactic, in my opinion. That's why. Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but yeah, no, that's an excellent point for sure. So hail Satan, yeah. Well, thanks so much for joining us tonight, Jay. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Why don't you go ahead and plug all your stuff, and so people can find you.
Okay. My music is it's over at a lost state of mind. It's all one word. It's aloststateofmind.com, and I'm also on Bandcamp. The same albums. It's aloststateofmind.bandcamp.com. All my music is free, so if you guys or girls like the music and you want to download it, you can. It's a pay if you want thing, so if you go to purchase a song, if you don't want to pay money, I'm okay with that. Just put 0.00 and you'll still be able to download it. I have a YouTube channel that's I say Know the Truth, but it's spelled Konw the Trut with 4 exclamation points. YouTube's gonna ask you, did you mean to spell it the correct way? No, you didn't. You meant to spell it the wrong way. You'll find my channel. Lately, my Spreaker has been uploading to that. I haven't been posting any new videos. But like we've talked about before, I've switched projects. I'm doing a podcast now. The name of the show is The Chirstian Experience, but the name of the podcast itself is also Know the Truth, spelled that same way, Konw the Trut. Trut. So if you want to look for it it's on Spreaker, Stitcher, iTunes. I think it'll soon be on iHeartRadio, but search that. And it's definitely different. But yeah, have fun with it. I'm trying to make people laugh, and I'm trying to be weird at the same time.
And you know what? It's really worth going back and watching all your videos too, because there's some funny shit in there. And he even does like subliminal sort of quick screen cuts of weird shit. It's quite good. So go definitely check that out. Do you do like Twitter or anything?
Oh yeah, man. I'm also on. I also have a Twitter account. It's at Know the Truth. Again, spelled the same way, but without the I think there's no exclamation points. But either way, if you search at Konw the Trut. Konw, you guys know. I also have a Patreon, but with a lot of podcasts out there, I don't demand, no, I don't think anybody demands money, but I have a Patreon if people want to donate money to it, but it's not necessary for me. It's just one of those things. If you want to, if you want to pay, you can. And I post my episodes on Patreon as well. So if you guys can't find anything else anywhere else, just go to Patreon. My episodes are there. They're also free. I don't charge for episodes. And I also have an Instagram, and I also have a Vines. Wow, I forgot about all this. I haven't posted to Vines in a while, but I post to Instagram sometimes. So it's just a way of branching out and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, just all you got to do really is just type in Konw the Trut in any one of those platforms, and you might find something. And also interact with me if you want to call the voicemail line for the podcast. It's a 512-956-TRUT or 512-956-8788. Call the voicemail line, leave a silly message, ask Pastor Jay a question, make fun of Pastor Jay. I don't care. It gets a chance to put you on the show, and it makes the show funnier, in my opinion. So yeah.
Excellent. And Beth, where can we find you?
Okay, first, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, because my computer is being weird. Easiest way is Twitter, Dune9998. That connects to my blog, Havoc and Chaos. And it also connects to my Facebook, which is Beth A. Hambridge. And I welcome all comers. Just be respectful.
Excellent.
One thing I want to say, too, because somebody asked in the comment section.
I was going to do that, so you go ahead. It's your show.
Yeah. Oh no! I just want to. The podcast that I do, it's not a live podcast. It airs at midnight every Friday night. But they are broken up into seasons, so there will be like I'll do a season, then take a month off. Maybe I'll do like some mini episodes, like Baxter and I driving across country. But we're not a live show. I just bill it as a live call-in show, but I do everything behind the scenes and I edit it to make it seem like a live call-in show. Just kind of. I don't think anybody else is doing that, and so it's not a live show, but it does air Friday nights at midnight.
It's a faux live show.
Yeah, exactly. Nothing I do in public is for real, so.
You could just call it. You're just the really authentic fake guy.
I will take your voicemails and make them seem like I'm actually interacting with you. Yes.
And you do a very good job at that. I will.
I appreciate it.
Because I know that you've edited this, but I'm listening to it going, damn, I can't. If I didn't know.
Well, a lot of that helps because sometimes the callers know that I'm going to do that, so they'll leave gaps and they'll allow me to. Yeah. That's good. I'll have to remember that because I don't know if you remember my Ruby character, but maybe Ruby needs to call in or something. Yeah, definitely.
Alrighty, well, again, Miss Ashley sends her regards, but she had to step away. She suddenly wasn't feeling so good. But, of course, you can find her Sunday nights at 7 p.m. Eastern on No Religion Required. I believe that's nrrpodcast.com. That's on Spreaker as well, No Religion Required. There's Facebook page, Facebook group, all of that. She's at Miss Ashley at Miss_Ashley NRR. You can find her there. So and it looks like she's gonna start. Her and Corinne and Susie are gonna start doing some Lucifer's Ladies soon, and that's with Zeds, not a Z. Ashley, it's a fucking Z. Okay. With a Z and a ladies Z. And of course, I can also be found at Holy Crap the Vlogcast, which airs Sunday mornings at 12:05 a.m. And you brought up Coast to Coast, Jay. That's why Shujin picked that time slot to be in.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, to go up against Coast to Coast. So 12:05 a.m. Sunday mornings. There's me and Shujin Tribble is the host, and
nice.
Like 5 of us were 5 or 6, 7, depending on what's going on. International, we've got Joseph in Paris and Chris in England and me and Dallin in Canada and then Joey and Bridget and Shujin in the States. And so we're a pretty rounded group. So and we just talk about whatever the fuck Shujin feels like talking about. So
nice.
That's every Sunday at 12:05 a.m. Holy Crap, thevlogcast.com. And we, of course, will be back here next week at 9:30 p.m. And I do apologize. I will broadcast out of the right Spreaker channel next time. So it will be. It's because Beyond the Trailer Park is like a secondary show on the same account, and I forgot to pick the other one. And it's only the second time I've done this in my defense. So, and it looks like we've lost Beth too.
Yeah.
Her computer was being weird. So, but anyway, until next week, we don't have anything specific planned next week. We might come up with something, but on the 9th of August, I'm really excited. I've got an ex-Scientologist from Ireland, Pete Griffiths. So That's going to be really cool. He's going to get up at 2 o'clock in the fucking morning to come hang out with us. So that's pretty amazing. So it sucks Scientology doesn't have any magic underwear. I could see if he models better than Nick than Mike did last week, but you know. So also a couple of things is, speaking of Chris from Holy Crap the Blogcast, Chris Sampson, he is participating in a fundraiser for cancer research. Now this is in England, but there's a website called justgiving.com, and he's under Chris-Sampson2, and he's taking part in an amateur boxing match in front of a crowd at some place called the Preston Guildhall. It's been arranged by Ultra White Collar Boxing. So he's going to be training to box for the next 8 weeks so that he can box in a charity match for cancer research. Nice. So if you go to the website, it's justgiving.com/fundraising/Chris Sampson2, you can pledge to support him in this boxing match. So you got 8 weeks, and we'll mention it again, and we'll make sure there's a link in the description. Also coming up on August 13th is the non-conference, which comes up in Ontario. This will be the 3rd non-conference, and this year it's in Niagara Falls, and you can go to thenon-conference.com and find out all the information. We're having Majid Nawaz is speaking, as well as Ali Rizvi, who's friend of the show. Oh goodness, my bad. I should look this up ahead of time, but but if you head out to the non-conference.com, you can see the list of speakers. It's going to be a good bunch again this year in Niagara Falls, Canada side, of course. And definitely check that out. And that's August 13th. There is a VIP ticket, which gets you a dinner with the speakers the night before. I will be attending the dinner. Unfortunately, I have a family wedding I have to go to, so I can't go to the actual conference itself, but I will be at the VIP dinner. So you can come, if you can come to that, you can come hang out. So that is the non-conference. And lastly, again, at the request of our good friend of the show, Along Black Cock, he would like us to mention the Taylor Scholarship, which is over at Whitefield's Educational Foundation. And if you haven't heard us talk about it before, they provide counseling for people who are leaving religion. They do a lot of really good work. The Taylor Scholarship is something that David Michael actually started up a while ago. David Michael, of course, has had to retire from podcasting, but the scholarship is still there. And that provides funds for people who really need the counseling but just can't afford it. And so there's a really great need for that. And Along Black Hawk has sent people there before. They do really good work. So if you feel like supporting, they'd love to have your money too. So I think that's it for this week. So again, Jay, thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it.
Thank you for having me. Yeah.
And I'll say goodnight for Beth, because I think either her internet or her computer crapped out. So she's also left us. Last people standing. Thanks to everybody who was in the chat. I did manage to see a little bit. Nick was in there. And who was there? Was somebody else in there. And I don't see who. Oh, Brett. Yes, Brett was with us last week. So thanks everybody for joining us in the chat. And like I said, I promised to broadcast from the right show next week, so it may be less confusing. So until then, as we do always, I will close out the show with our good friend Dave Foda's Humanist Creed, and we'll see everybody next week.
I know the truth and power of reason and of rational thinking, and I will use them to my advantage. I know the truth and power of educating myself and of expanding my intellectual boundaries, and I will educate myself. I know the truth and power of vanquishing ignorance, and I will do so whenever the opportunity presents itself. I know the truth and power of morality without supervision, and of true and accurate righteousness. I know the truth and power of obliterating tyranny, be it intellectual, emotional, or philosophical, and will work toward that goal whenever and however possible. I know the truth and power of human ingenuity. I know the truth and power of human compassion, and I will be mindful of the welfare of others. I know the truth and power of equality and fairness for all living things. I know the truth and power of the importance of our families, our friends, and our fellow men and women. I know the truth and power of human stewardship of our lands, our waters, and our skies, and I will try to act to preserve our environment. I know the truth and power of the sciences of mathematics, of physics, and of chemistry, and of the important role of these disciplines in understanding the workings of this cosmos. I know the truth and power of the rejection of all notions or beliefs that reside in the supernatural or the superstitious, and of those notions or beliefs that we are not supposed to be able to explain. And I know that these rejections are necessary for humankind's survival. I am a human being with a free mind, liberated from irrational influence and from unreasonable dogma.